sucker shit?
I was thinking. This one's personal. So if you know anything about me, I am a proud father. I love my children to death. And my youngest, my baby girl, starts high school in the fall. And she had her little virtual, they don't call it graduation for middle school, whatever they call it, ceremony. And I was thinking, man, that I'm one step closer to shaking hands with the nigga that's gonna be pogo-sticking up inside my daughter, because she's growing up, man. And I had a little moment where some darkness fell over me, man. It was like a shadow. And I was like sweating, and I was like, somebody gonna be banging her out, man, and this is messing with me, because it's just a natural thing of life, man.
It should be messing with you.
And so I just had a moment where I told God he was on some sucker shit. So God, you on some sucker shit.
Fucking Cristo, man. What's wrong with you?
Well, now, yes, amen, ashe, and all of that. Here's the flip side of that coin. There's a lot of women that say, okay, well, what does a dad do besides pay? Well, I'll give you one for those that don't know. One of the keys to manhood is dick discipline. And it's not a speech that you're gonna get correctly from your mother, because she doesn't have one. She doesn't know what shoots through a young man's body. Inside baseball, for those who don't know, the same amount of testosterone that's in a 35-year-old man is in a 15-year-old boy. And that's 25 years of difference of being able to handle it.
Right.
That 15-year-old boy is lightning walking around right now.
Right.
The discipline that you have to have as a man going into some of these volatile situations, you have to have that discipline to know different things, but to be able to walk away and eliminate from situations. But if you're led by your penis, you'll stay involved, because them crazy girls' puss be fire.
Hey, it's best.
All the time that box is fire. And so if you don't have that discipline, you're gonna fall in the trap.
Yeah.
Right? It's our responsibility as men to teach these young boys. You gotta stand on this right here, right? You gotta have that level of discipline, and the sexual drive of men is literally insatiable. All right? It's not understood, but all of us men, we know, right? And it is one of the challenges in our lifetimes is to be able to develop that discipline. Fathers, on average, are the disciplinarians in terms of they draw a line, you don't cross that line no matter what.
Consequences.
It's not, oh, that's my baby, oh, this, oh, that. And there's consequences when you do cross that line. And it doesn't move, right? Because life for us doesn't move. You get into that domestic situation, your ass going to jail, okay? And that's what we have to learn on our end. So that's why it's valuable for both of us to take responsibility and accountability so we can teach these lessons and move forward.
Man.
And so that those lessons don't necessarily always have to come, and in our cases, not necessarily from their father, solely from their father, And Black men, we have to take a greater obligation to young men above and beyond what our direct progeny. Like, just because he didn't come from the seed of my loin doesn't mean I'm not responsible for this young man in that space.
Yeah.
And I like the anecdotal piece that you added to the game, man, because I remember as a young boy, I might have been like 11, 12, maybe about 12-ish, and I asked my dad. I was out here, I was in Compton in the summer with my dad, and I was like, just curious. I was like, yo, man, what happened between you and Moms? And he was like, ask your mother. Right? Did not shit on her at all, right? I get back home after that summer, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let me hit up Moms, right? I hit up Moms, and basically she was like, yeah, I fucked that up. I mean, she didn't use them words, but she basically said, I was just like off hinged. She said, I used to yell at him. I used to get mad, and Pops used to like work these crazy hours, and then, you know what I'm saying? So I was born, and you know, it was chaotic. Y'all know how, well, you know how it is when you have a newborn in the house and Pop's working crazy hours, and you know, she was frustrated, and the more she yelled at him, the more quiet he got.
The more he receded.
And it pissed her off. The more mad she even got, the madder she got, right? So I respected her so much after that, right? Even more so as an adult man, you know, in my experiences now with women. Because I was like, wow, man, my mom just straight up took that accountability. It's like, yeah, I fucked that up. And on the flip side, my dad had every opportunity to say, hey, your mama won shit, or she was crazy as shit, you know, she was batshit crazy, you know. He didn't. He took the high road. So I appreciate that. And
that also
that's
speaks to JT's point about most of us are inclined to recede in the space of that escalation. Right. You know, and part of that's not just within the home. You know, we're taught in spaces of violence outside the house that when it's escalated with people of authority, that we have no choice but to recede. We have to dial it down because it could become life altering.
That's right. Don't talk to that officer like that.
Exactly.
Hey, don't even talk to the dude that you bump into at the liquor store.
Come on.
Like that.
Stephen A. told Marcus Smart in that confrontation at Oklahoma State, don't you ever dare put your hand on a white man. He said that on ESPN.
And
no one outside of us
was like, what?
What? Like what? Don't you dare. Like what?
I'm a college student. And that's a grown ass man.
Who put his hands
on him first.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. It's interesting, and I've heard that story from Rob before. And, the word of this discussion is anecdotal. That's only the third time in my adult life. Well, actually, two of those were stories I heard, and one I witnessed personally. On a serious topic like that, where a woman said, I made a mistake, I messed up. I just straight out owned it, not the but you gotta understand the and all the tap dancing, right? And I would love to see a survey of how many men have heard that. That would open up the dialogue and conversation between us to such a level. And I don't understand why. Well, I know my bad was not invented by a woman, but I don't think our women understand how that could open up the floodgates in terms of conversation and communication.
Right.
But there's such a grip on being right. And I made a joke. I said she'd rather be caught dead than caught dead wrong.
Wow.
Oof.
And that's where we are in a lot of our relationships.
Yeah.
Just say my bad.
And this is what the reason and rationale why we are having this discussion. And oftentimes Black females will hear this discussion and say, oh, they're angry. Well, we've heard this from people who listen to the show. Oh, y'all angry? What happened to you guys?
Bitter.
You're bitter. All these things, when actually, if you listen very closely, we actually put the onus on us 99.9. Even if we're pointing out something that we observe, we still put the onus on us.
Because we have the choice of how we react in the space.
And that's the why. And the why behind we have these conversations is to change and shift that narrative, to add some data to some bullshit that's out there. Why? To shift and transform Black relationships and improve. So shift, transform, and improve Black relationships.
Shit, if we bitter, then you can't listen to Mary J. Blige's 2nd through 4th albums. You can't watch half the Black movies in the 90s because all that shit was hot.
Hot.
You know?
Hot.
So, I mean, I was like, is this bitter? I wish some folks would be as bitter as me.
There's a point where the acceptance of responsibility then becomes, we start to gaslight ourselves, So if we're always in that role where we start the dialogue with our bad, then it's a completely disingenuous
Yep.
argument, because now if we're the ones that always have to initiate it, then we when the fatigue sets in, when we don't feel like taking the responsibility for anymore, then how do we progress?
Right.
Then how do we get to that resolution? What happens is we end up just surrendering in the space.
Love Jones.
I was talking to a friend of mine, homegirl of mine. We're having a discussion. It was a ranging discussion, but I made this point to her. I said, let's say we step into family court. It is assumed you are a good mother, and we go from there backwards.
Yep.
Right? I have to prove
You're a capable father.
that I'm not good, capable.
Capable.
Right? Good is extra credit, right? So I started a deficit. I said, so how can we have a true conversation at what's best for our child when it's assumed that you're better than I am already when we walk through the door, right? So that's how we entered these discussions, right? If I'm sitting across the table and the ghost of Ike Turner is sitting next to me, right? And Mother Teresa is sitting next to you, then how are we gonna have a valid discussion about what's going on? We have to be able to say, okay, let's step down and be human with each other and say, hey, I have some anger issues and I did take a swipe at you. I got a bad mouth and a bad tongue and I don't like everything I hear is criticism and I go off.
Ooh.
Okay, so now let's work on it and let's take this walk.
Cool. Well, listen, with that being said, man, we'd like to thank everybody for coming in, for tuning in to Skinny Black's Lounge. Thank you very much, Ren.
You make it sound
JT
nice.
with period.
Or you could just say, if you want equality, you better work on your jab. I got a nice left, man.
Oh my God.
Better feint.
Show the roll.
Yeah, that's Mayweather Gym.
You know what I'm saying?
On Torrance.
So big ups to, to everybody, man. Big ups to, my man, Gaston, Gentleman's Orderly, It's a Go, Tally and Twine, love the watches. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get everybody outfitted at some point. Hey, big shout out to, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, man. And Onyx Report, who are doing some yeoman's work around data, around masculinity. So
shout out to Yeoman.
Your man or yo man?
Both of them.
So, hey man, thanks. Tune in next week. Peace.